Mourinho having to fix the Real Madrid locker room again might be one of the most difficult things he has done in his career, and that's saying something because the special one has done a lot of difficult things throughout his life.
You sound as though you're feeling the pressure.
I'm not feeling the pressure, no. You cannot put pressure on me, no chance.
Please don't call me arrogant, because what I'm saying is true. I'm European champion, so I'm not one of the bottle. I think I'm a special one. Do you know that what was the result? 3-0, but also mean 3 premierships, and I won more premierships alone than the other 19 managers together. 3 for me and 2 for them. Respect.
He won a Champions League with Porto of all teams.
When you look to great managers in the world, people who work for 20 years at the highest level, some of them, they never had the chance to win a UEFA Cup or a Champions League, or both of them. So for me, it's absolutely amazing.
He broke a 45-year trophy drought for Inter when he won them the Champions League. He also won them the treble that same season.
Congratulations, Jose. What does it mean to win your second Champions League and the treble for Inter Milan?
I'm so happy, I'm so proud.
He won United a European title during a time where they were in a downward spiral. He also got second with them in the Premier League, which he himself claims is one of the most difficult things he has ever done.
You say this guy is crazy. He won 25 titles, and he's saying that a second position was one of his best achievements in football. I keep saying this because people doesn't know what is going behind the scenes.
He won a trophy with a Roma team that had less money than me.
This for us is our Champions League.
He even almost won a trophy for Spurs before he was sacked before the final, so Levy wouldn't have to pay him a bonus. But despite all of that, the task at hand now is the most difficult in his career.
And it's about José Mourinho, because it's been confirmed he will become the new Real Madrid manager.
Yeah, I think they did. I think Florentino Perez still has José Mourinho in really high esteem, and they've never stopped talking since Mourinho left the club a few years ago. They still stayed in good terms, and I think there's a lot of things that Florentino Perez likes about José Mourinho, like that leadership.
He has to restore a locker room that has never been more divided. Every single week there's a new controversy coming out of the club.
We've had Mbappe on holiday in Sardinia. We've had the story emerging about the clash between Rudiger and Carreras behind the scenes, coming together, a clash between Valverde and Tchouaméni in training yesterday. Yeah, this is a hugely embarrassing episode for Real Madrid, K. The latest in what's turning into a disastrous season.
Keeping up with the Kardashians? Nah, it's keeping up with the Madridistas. One day it's arguments between players that sends one to the hospital, the next day it's public complaints, media leaks, or the fans turning against the board.
These are all a bunch of spoiled brats, and Tchouaméni had enough of Valverde, Valverde had enough of Tchouaméni. I have seen fights before. They have happened before, but not as repeatedly and as often as it has happened here with Real Madrid.
The squad itself looks split into little groups. Reports keep pointing towards different cliques forming around certain stars. Meanwhile, the Bernabeu crowd has started turning on everybody. The players get booed, fans displayed banners demanding Florentino Perez to resign, while security rushed to remove them. That's right, before Mbappe, there was another dictator in Madrid. Then came Florentino Perez's bizarre press conference, which honestly felt like a man trying to defend his entire legacy in real time. It was the old man yelling at the cloud meme. There is a growing feeling that Perez's empire is starting to crack. The Super League project failed, the Bernabeu renovations became massively expensive, relationships with Spanish football authorities have deteriorated, and the squad itself looks horribly unbalanced. Too many attacking stars, not enough defensive stability, and constant tension between the big personalities.
The direction of this Real Madrid is going is not nice, it's not good, and the work that they are going to have to do is going to be double, because 2 years in a row without trophies and having to replace probably the manager next year, plus players in every single line to reinforce this team doesn't look good or bright for the future of this Real Madrid side next year.
Off the pitch, things look just as bad. Madrid went through a second straight season without a major trophy for the first time since the late 2000s. Barca have dominated them again. Madrid's football looks unstable, and the chemistry inside the squad feels completely wrong. And that's exactly why Perez turned to Mourinho.
What is the lure of coming here to Madrid? You could pick any club in the world. Why here? What do you want to achieve here?
It's the only club that wants me.
I think you'd have a choice.
No, I don't have.
He trusts him because Mourinho has done it before. Madrid are no longer looking for a calm tactical project or another soft-spoken manager who wants harmony. Perez looked desperate for somebody strong enough to walk into a broken dressing room and take control immediately, while Mourinho has always thrived in chaos. He's one of the few managers in football with the personality, authority, and experience to handle superstar egos, dressing room politics, media pressure, and the internal wars all at the same time.
Not the biggest in stature, but when he walks in, you think he's 7 foot tall. I just think he's a wonderful character for the football, for the game, and I think he's made to manage a club like Real Madrid. He really is, because I just think one man's in control. No matter how big that club is, he will control that dressing room. He'll get the best out of that group of individuals.
The problem is that Mourinho appointments are never low-risk decisions. They are always high-risk, high-reward gamble.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
When things work, his team has become mentally unstoppable. They play with aggression, discipline, and complete belief in the manager. But when the relationships start breaking down, everything collapses very quickly, and Real Madrid fans know that better than anybody. Let me take you back to 2010. The football world was dominated by one overwhelming reality: Pep Guardiola's Barcelona. They played a brand of football that looked completely unstoppable and had established an absolute chokehold on both Spanish and European football. Meanwhile, over in the capital, Real Madrid's president, Florentino Perez, was growing increasingly desperate. Perez had spent astronomical sums of money to launch his Galacticos 2.0 project, bringing in global superstars like Cristiano Ronaldo, Kaká, Karim Benzema, and Xabi Alonso. Yet despite this massive injection of elite talent, the team was underachieving. They looked soft and constantly fell in the shadow of their biggest rivals.
Barcelona were winning a league every year. They had this young side, they had this young coach. And so if you're Real Madrid and you've spent an absolute fortune in the previous sort of 7 or 8 years, and you look at Barcelona and you think, what do we do? How do we stop this?
Real Madrid did not just need a new manager. They needed a savior who could transform a group of highly paid individuals into a dominant winning machine. Sound familiar? Mourinho at this time was at the absolute peak of his powers. He was viewed as almost unbeatable. He had won league titles and European trophies with Porto, Chelsea, and Inter Milan. Everywhere he went, success followed. He had just completed a historic, legendary continental treble with Inter Milan. More importantly though, he had done what many people thought was impossible. He had knocked out Pep's Barcelona out of the Champions League.
Once upon a time they called you the translator here. Is this one of your proudest moments as a manager?
Yes. Is
the most proud?
Yes.
People rightfully make fun of Barca in the Champions League now, but back then they were incredible. In 2009 they had won the sextuple. In 2010, Mourinho stopped them.
When José Mourinho was a translator here, an assistant here, did you see him becoming the great manager he is today?
No. In that time I would see this talent, I would go to the president and say, oh, keep going here because this guy is good.
But then in 2011, they ran through everyone the way Yamal goes through IG models. After eliminating Pep's Barca, Mourinho sprinted across the Camp Nou, celebrating in front of the furious Barcelona supporters. For many Madridistas, that image felt symbolic.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Mourinho looked like the only man in Europe brave enough to directly challenge Barcelona at their peak. That's why his arrival in Madrid created so much excitement.
When José Mourinho arrived to Madrid, he felt that Barcelona were far too comfortable in their skin, in the way they played, in the way they were treated by others, and he wanted to destroy that.
Perez hired the Portuguese man with a simple goal: restore Real Madrid's competitive edge and Barcelona's dominance, and bring home the club's 10th Champions League title, the long-awaited La Decima. To do this, Mourinho had to completely rebuild the club's cultural foundations, a task that required tackling what he later termed the club's football heritage. When he arrived in Madrid, the squad was severely lacking in deep European experience. Only Xabi Alonso, Iker Casillas, and Cristiano Ronaldo had ever played in a Champions League quarterfinal. The rest of the squad did not even know what it took to compete at the highest level of European knockout football, and Mourinho was determined to teach them. The first thing Mourinho did at Real Madrid was bring structure and discipline to a squad that badly needed it. He quickly realized that the team had incredible attacking talent, but they were far too open defensively. So Mourinho introduced a very compact and highly organized 4-2-3-1 system built around defensive balance, fast transitions, and ruthless counterattacking. The idea was to absorb pressure, win the ball, and then attack at terrifying speed before the opponent could even recover. One of Mourinho's boldest decisions was to change the defensive line completely. He moved Sergio Ramos from right back into center back alongside Pepe. Together these guys formed an aggressive and physical center back partnership.
Messi came from the number 9 position to this position behind me, and they used to do 2 against 1 against me, and Ramos came to press Messi where this big space used to be created, and when Messi got, he used to play for Villa or for Pedro in that position, and that's when we started controlling better this, I think that Ramos used to say, Xavi, Messi's coming, and I didn't go to press Xavi, where I was staying more with Messi.
They dominated strikers both technically and mentally. To make the system work, Mourinho used Arbeloa in a much more defensive role at right back. Arbeloa stayed deeper and focused mainly on defensive positioning, which gave Marcelo far more freedom to attack down the left side. Then came the midfield setup. Mourinho built the center of the pitch around a double pivot of Sami Khedira and Xabi Alonso. Khedira became the physical runner of the team. He pressed constantly, covered huge spaces defensively, and made aggressive tackles. He occasionally arrived late into the penalty box to support the attack. Meanwhile, Xabi Alonso was the brain of the system. The moment Madrid recovered possession, Alonso would immediately look forward and fire these long, accurate passes into dangerous areas to start the counters instantly. His passing range became one of the most important weapons in Mourinho's entire setup. Ahead of them was Mesut Ozil, who operated as the creative playmaker between the midfield and the attack. Once Ozil got possession, Ronaldo and Di Maria would explode forward with incredible pace, attacking the spaces behind the defenders before teams could reorganize themselves. And up front, Karim Benzema became the perfect connector. Real Madrid transformed into one of the most devastating counterattacking teams football had ever seen. The absolute peak of Mourinho's Real Madrid project came during the legendary 2011-2012 season. The team became known as La Liga de los Records because they broke almost every major attacking record imaginable. Mourinho's Madrid became the first team in Spanish top-flight history to reach 100 points in a single league season. They were a footballing machine. Every week, Madrid looked faster, stronger, and more ruthless than their opponents. The transitions were devastating. Teams would dominate possession for stretches, keep the ball, but as soon as they lost the ball, suddenly Ronaldo, Di Maria, Benzema, and Ozil were all sprinting towards you at full speed. One of Mourinho's biggest achievements that season was transforming Ronaldo into an even more direct and unstoppable attacking force. Under him, Ronaldo stopped playing like a traditional winger and evolved into a pure goal-scoring monster. To this day, in my opinion, I think this is the very best version of Ronaldo because he still had his dribbling ability from his Manchester United days, but now he was scoring like he was a traditional 9. Ronaldo scored 46 league goals that season and became the fastest player in Spanish football history to reach 100 goals in only 92 matches. But the Madrid team wasn't only about Ronaldo. Ozil became the best chance creator in Europe, and Angel Di Maria brought so much intensity and pace down the wings, while Benzema perfectly connected the attack with his movement and intelligence. Madrid finally played with aggression and complete belief. The players looked mentally transformed compared to previous years. A perfect example of that came in the Champions League against Manchester City. Madrid went down 2-0 at the Bernabeu and looked close to disaster, but instead of collapsing, Mourinho's side exploded late in the match. They scored 3 goals in the final minutes to complete an unforgettable 3-2 comeback that sent the stadium into complete madness. That comeback perfectly captured Mourinho's Madrid. They were emotional, intense, relentless, and absolutely terrifying when everything clicked together. Now, to truly understand Mourinho's first stint at Real Madrid, you have to understand how much El Clasico consumed everything around the club. You also have to remember that Mourinho always had a chip on his shoulder when it came to Barca.
Me preocupa la construcción de un grande Real Madrid, no me preocupa el Barcelona, en absoluto. No hablo, no pienso, no quiero hablar, no quiero pensar del Barcelona en este momento.
And all of a sudden, there was much more noise.
Si soy odiado en Barcelona, problema de quien me odia, no problema mío.
I just thought myself this would be fun.
He was a translator at the club before eventually going into management. So when the Barca manager position opened up after Rijkaard, he naturally thought it was going to be him who gets the position. At the time, he had already achieved so much both with Porto and Chelsea. He felt he deserved the job, but Barca disagreed. They chose to go with Pep, a manager who they felt better fit their philosophy and identity. Keep in mind, at that point, Pep was a nobody in the managerial world. His only experience was managing Barca B. So because of that, and because of the fact that Mourinho naturally creates chaos, matches between Real Madrid and Barcelona stopped feeling like normal football games. They became very personal. At the time, Pep's Barcelona looked almost untouchable when allowed to dominate possession freely. Mourinho understood that trying to outplay them with open attacking football was basically suicide. So instead of trying to copy Barcelona, he built a system specifically designed to hurt them. One of his most famous tactical ideas became a setup of using 3 defensive-minded midfielders to completely overcrowd the center of the pitch. In the biggest matches against Barcelona, Mourinho would often sacrifice one creative attacker and instead loaded the midfield with physicality and aggression. Usually, Xabi Alonso and Sami Khedira were joined by Pepe, a man who believed that if you're still breathing, it's not a foul. Pepe's role was extremely aggressive. Whenever Messi entered central areas, Pepe immediately stepped forward to pressure him physically and disrupt Barca's rhythm. Mourinho wanted to clog the middle of the pitch completely so Barca could not play their usual tiki-taka combinations through the lines. The plan was about surviving pressure long enough to strike back violently on the counter. The moment Madrid recovered possession, Ronaldo and Di Maria were already sprinting forward. A lot of football purists hated this approach. They felt Mourinho's football was too physical, too defensive, and too confrontational for Real Madrid's history. But Mourinho didn't give a rat's ass about style debates. He didn't care about aesthetics. He only cared about finding ways to beat the best team in the world at the time.
The objective is not to coach Real Madrid. The objective is to win with Real Madrid, especially against Barcelona, that is an incredible football team.
And eventually it worked, as seen in the 2011 Copa del Rey final. Madrid defended aggressively, they stayed compact, survived Barcelona's pressure. Then came the winning moment. In extra time, CR7 rose in the air and powered home a brilliant header to give Madrid a 1-0 win, and handed Mourinho his first major trophy in Spain. That goal meant far more than just winning a cup. For Madrid, it proved that Pep's Barca could actually be beaten. The aggression and siege mentality that made Mourinho's Real Madrid so dangerous also created some very ugly moments. Mourinho was brilliant at turning football into psychological warfare, but over time, the tension around the team became exhausting and toxic. The rivalry with Barcelona stopped just being about tactics and football. It started becoming deeply personal.
It becomes much more than just a football game. It becomes political. It becomes all about, where you were born and what you perceive to be right and wrong.
And eventually things crossed the line. Look at the 2011 Spanish Super Cup second leg at the Camp Nou. The match was already full of bad blood and constant confrontations. Then late in the game, Marcelo launched a reckless challenge on Cesc Fabregas right in front of the benches. Immediately, chaos exploded. Players, coaches, and staff from both teams rushed towards each other as a massive fight broke out on the touchline. And right in the middle of all that madness came the image that would follow Mourinho for years. Television cameras caught Mourinho walking behind Barcelona's assistant coach, Tito Villanova, and poking him directly in the eye with his finger.
Terrible scenes of, Jose pulling Tito Villanova in the eye.
One of the most balanced men in football gets his eye pulled. Take the name José Mourinho out of that. If you saw that at school, or on the street, or in some YouTube video, you'd say, well, that person's a piece of scum.
I mean, that's not even allowed in the UFC. The aftermath became a complete circus. Spanish football authorities opened investigations. Mourinho received a suspension. Villanova was punished too, and the rivalry between Madrid and Barcelona reached an even darker level emotionally. But what really damaged Mourinho's image inside Real Madrid was how he handled the situation afterward. Instead of calming things down or showing remorse, Mourinho doubled down publicly. He apologized only to Real Madrid supporters and insisted he would never become a hypocrite. Then during a press conference, he mockingly referred to Tito Villanova as Pito, pretending he didn't even know Pep Guardiola's assistant properly.
La pregunta que me hace de Pito Villanova, como se llama este, que no sé cómo se llama.
Then there was the event that happened even before this. In April of 2011, Real Madrid lost 2-0 to Barcelona in the first leg of the Champions League semi-final, and Mourinho completely exploded in one of the most famous press conferences football has ever seen. The match itself had already been chaotic and full of tension. Tackles were flying everywhere, players were surrounding the referee constantly, and the emotions were completely out of control. Just your average El Clasico. The biggest turning point came when Pepe was shown a red card for a high high challenge on Dani Alves. Mourinho was furious with the decision and sarcastically applauded the referee from the touchline, which got him sent off too. But the real storm came afterward. In the post-match press conference, Mourinho went far beyond simply complaining about a refereeing decision. Sitting in front of the global media, he openly suggested there was a conspiracy helping Barcelona reach Champions League finals.
Si le digo a él y a UEFA lo que pienso, lo que siento, termina mi carrera hoy. No sé si es la publicidad a UNICEF, no sé si es el poder del señor Villar en UEFA, no sé si son muy simpáticos, no sé.
José Mourinho managed to have so many arguments against Barcelona that had to do with referees protect them and UEFA protects them and authorities protect them.
Possibly his most ludicrous allegation of all time is that there's a conspiracy between Barcelona and the UEFA to make Barcelona win the Champions League every year.
When you live on the edge like Jose does, at times he does live on the edge, and sometimes you go too far over the line.
I don't think it bothers Jose that. I don't think it would worry him. The thing is, he's in the result industry, he knows that. His results account.
The comments instantly became global headlines, but Mourinho pushed things even further when he took a direct shot at Pep Guardiola himself. He claimed Pep's Champions League wins should come with embarrassment because of refereeing controversy, even suggesting Pep had never won a proper Champions League.
José Guardiola es un entrenador fantástico de fútbol, yo repito, pero ha ganado una Champions que a mí me daría vergüenza de ganarla, porque la ganó con el escándalo de Stamford Bridge. Y si este año gana la segunda, gana con el escándalo del Bernabéu.
Mourinho sees Guardiola as tired and harassed, and I think Mourinho very shrewdly was trying to make the season draining and tiring and distracting.
The fallout was massive. Barca immediately filed an official complaint with UEFA. The media exploded with debates, and the rivalry between the two clubs became even more toxic emotionally. A lot of Real Madrid fans actually loved the press conference because they felt Mourinho was bravely standing up against the football establishment and refusing to stay quiet. Remember, at this time, Barca were called UEFA-Lona. But inside Real Madrid's leadership, the reaction was very different. Many senior figures of the club felt deeply uncomfortable with how extreme Mourinho's behavior had become. They worried that the constant conspiracy theories and public drama were damaging Real Madrid's image internationally. Everything had become personal, emotional, and completely exhausting for everyone involved. By the beginning of the 2012-2013 season, the intense siege mentality Mourinho had built around Real Madrid started turning toxic internally. That same us against the world mentality that once united the squad was now slowly tearing it apart from the inside. The dressing room became deeply divided, and several of the team's biggest Spanish players had completely lost trust in Mourinho. At the center of this chaos was Iker Casillas. Mourinho became convinced that somebody inside the dressing room was leaking private information to the media. Tactical discussions, dressing room arguments, injury updates, everything. Inside the club, the supposed leak became known as El Topo, the mole.
Mourinho had this obsession that there was a mole in the dressing room, that the team was being leaked. And so he goes in the dressing room, he picks up a can of Red Bull, hurls it against the wall, where it smashes and sprays sticky soft drink over everybody. So there was this sort of moment of stunned silence.
And Mourinho believed Casillas was responsible. Part of the suspicion came from Casillas' relationship with famous Spanish journalist Sarah Carbonero, who regularly discussed tensions around the team publicly on television. But things got even worse because of what happened between Madrid and Barcelona during Spain's national team camps. After several extremely violent and toxic Clasicos, Casillas reportedly contacted Barcelona leaders like Xavi and Puyol in an attempt to calm tensions and repair relationships inside the Spanish national team. To most people, it looked like a mature attempt to reduce hostility, but Mourinho saw it completely differently. He viewed any attempt at peace with Barcelona as weakness. In his mind, Madrid and Barcelona were in total war competitively, and he believed Casillas was undermining the aggressive mentality he had spent years building. From that point onward, the relationship became almost impossible to repair. Mourinho eventually made the shocking decision to bench Casillas, first replacing him with Antonio Adan, before later bringing in Diego Lopez as the new starting goalkeeper. That decision completely split the club. Some fans defended Mourinho because they believed nobody should be untouchable, not even a club legend like Casillas. Others felt Mourinho had crossed a line by publicly humiliating the captain and symbol of Real Madrid. Then came an article from the newspaper Marca that published a word-for-word transcript of a massive face-to-face argument that had taken place at Real Madrid's training ground between Mourinho, Sergio Ramos, and Iker Casillas. The argument took place just days after Real Madrid, playing a highly defensive system, had been beaten once again by Barcelona. According to the leaked transcript, the confrontation began when Mourinho turned to Sergio Ramos and accused the Spanish players of undermining him. Mourinho stated, "You killed me in the mix zone." Ramos replied, "No, mister, you only read what it says in the papers, not everything we said." Mourinho goes, "Sure, because you Spaniards have been world champions and your friends in the media protect you, and because the goalkeeper." Mourinho then shifted the argument to a specific tactical error that had occurred during the Barcelona match. "Where were you on the first goal, Sergio?" Mourinho asked Ramos. "Marking Piqué," he said. "Well, you should have been marking Puyol." "Yes, but they were blocking us off with Piqué, and we decided to change the marking." Mourinho goes, "What? So now you're playing and you're the coach?" Ramos replies, "No, but depending on the situation in the game, sometimes you have to change the marking. Because you've never been a professional player, you don't know that sometimes something like that happens." The final insult from Ramos was a massive blow to Mourinho's authority. The player's perspective was that because Mourinho had never played football at the highest level, he simply did not understand the split-second decisions players had to make on the pitch. Even Cristiano Ronaldo, who shared both Portuguese nationality and agent Jorge Mendes with Mourinho, ended up on terrible terms with his boss. Mourinho openly criticized Ronaldo's ego, telling the press that Ronaldo thinks he knows everything, but the coach cannot improve him anymore. By the spring of 2013, the atmosphere at Real Madrid had become completely unsustainable, impossible to control. The dressing room was completely divided. Every relationship had basically broken down.
By the time that Mourinho's reign is ending at Real Madrid, it's arguments, it's discord, it's picking fights with Pepe, picking fights with Iker Casillas, picking fights with Cristiano Ronaldo. It seemed to me to be incomprehensible. It seemed to me to be a manager in sporting breakdown, because you're paid to magnify your own assets, not diminish them.
Eventually, the conflict reached its breaking point. According to reports from that period, Ramos and Casillas met directly with Perez and delivered a brutal ultimatum. Either Mourinho leaves or we do. There were fears that key members of the squad would literally request transfers if Mourinho stayed another season. At the same time, the football itself was no longer strong enough to justify all the chaos surrounding the club. Mourinho had transformed Madrid competitively and ended Barcelona's dominance domestically for a period, but the one thing Perez wanted more than anything, La Decima, never arrived. Real Madrid fell in 3 straight Champions League semi-finals under Mourinho, including the heartbreaking shootout loss against Bayern in 2012. Then the 2012-2013 season was disastrous. Madrid lost the league title back to Barcelona and ended the year without a major trophy. The final humiliation came in the Copa del Rey final against Atletico Madrid. Madrid lost in extra time at the Bernabeu in one of the most emotionally toxic nights of Mourinho's reign. Both himself and Ronaldo were sent off during the match after furious protests towards the referee. Even the special one himself looked mentally exhausted by the end. At that point, everybody inside the club understood the project had burned itself out. So eventually Perez and Mourinho agreed to separate by mutual consent, allowing the Portuguese man to return to Chelsea, while leaving behind a Real Madrid squad emotionally drained after 3 years of non-stop intensity, conflict, and pressure. But now, over a decade later, the story has somehow come full circle again. In 2026, after another disappointing and trophyless season, this time under interim manager Arbeloa, following the collapse of Xabi Alonso's short-lived project, Perez took on another big gamble. Because despite everything that happened in the first time, Perez still believes Mourinho can do something almost nobody else can, and that's to take control of the chaos.
I have even more desire to win than I had before. That's my nature. In life you have to have ambitions till the end of it. I have exactly the same or more ambition than I had before.
Now this video only scratched the surface of the issues Real Madrid have been facing. To see how they went from the best club in the world to a joke in just a few years, you have to watch this video right here.